The answer to 1913 is 2025. 3 charts that show why income tax, the IRS, and Federal Reserve should be abolished. Michael Snyder reports, most Americans don't know that for much of U.S. history there was no federal income tax and there was no central bank. But now everyone assumes that we must have federal income tax and a central bank in order to have a functioning society. Today there are just a handful of nations that do not have an income tax, and more than 99% of the entire population of the globe lives in a country that has a central bank. Of course, the two work hand in hand. A central bank creates a spiral of borrowing that is meant to be unbreakable, and an income tax is necessary to serve payments on that debt spiral. It's not a coincidence that a federal income tax and the Federal Reserve were both established in 1913. Since that time, we have piled up the biggest mountain of debt in the history of the world, and that is precisely the outcome that the system was designed to produce. So what is the solution to this colossal mess? The answer to 1913 is 2025. This year, we're seeing things get proposed in Washington, D.C. that once would have been unthinkable. For example, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick just told Fox News that President Trump wants to abolish the Internal Revenue Service. More details have emerged from Trump administration about alleged plans to get rid of the Internal Revenue, the IRS, and utilize tariffs so the whole country, the whole economy explodes. His goal is to abolish the Internal Revenue Service and let all the outsiders pay, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said Wednesday on Jesse Waters' Prime Time. As the president said, reciprocal tariffs, either you bring yours down or we're going to bring ours up. If we go to their level, it will earn us $700 billion a year to be equal to everybody else, he explained Thursday on America's Newsroom. And it appears that the Trump administration is already taking concrete steps towards that goal. In fact, it's being reported that approximately 7,000 probationary workers at the IRS are about to be hitting the bricks. The Internal Revenue Service, IRS, is planning to slash approximately 7,000 probationary workers in Washington, D.C., and across the U.S. starting Thursday, according to reports. The layoffs will affect probationary workers who have been employed for 1 year or less and have not been able to secure full civil service protection. The Associated Press reported citing a person familiar with the plans. So wow. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is also being targeted by the new administration. In fact, Elon Musk has suggested that the Federal Reserve could soon get visited by the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk wrote on X in response to a user's post about billionaire support for the audit of the Fed and that the central bank is not above scrutiny from DOGE. All aspects of the government must be fully transparent and accountable to the people. No exceptions, including, if not especially, the Federal Reserve, Musk wrote. Musk is a longtime critic of the central bank and has called out its decisions on monetary policy, as well as claiming the Fed's workforce is bloated. This is wonderful news, because what we have been doing for decades is clearly not working. The Federal Reserve System is designed to create debt, and the income tax is designed to service that debt. We find ourselves on the endless hamster wheel that becomes more painful with each passing year. The charts I'm about to share with you tell a very clear story. The primary reason why we have had an almost unbelievable high standard of living over the past 3 decades is because we have piled up the biggest mountain of debt in the history of the world. Once upon a time, the United States was the wealthiest country on the entire planet, but all of that prosperity was not good enough for us. So we started borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and we have now been living beyond our means for so long that we consider it to be completely normal. When President Woodrow Wilson entered the White House in 1913, the U.S. was less than $3 billion in debt. Now we are $36 trillion in debt. This is what the central bank is designed to do. Most people simply don't understand that. But we have been robbing future generations blind for so long that it doesn't even seem to bother most people anymore. And it's time for a change. Sadly, Americans have also accumulated the largest mountain of household debt in the history of the world. And the following chart comes directly from the Federal Reserve, showing the growth of household and nonprofit organization debt over the years. It's just mind-boggling. Now, out of that amount, more than $18 trillion of it is household debt. Americans' household debt levels, including credit card debt, rose to new all-time highs in the fourth quarter of 2024, according to a report by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The report showed that overall household debt increased by $93 billion to $18.04 trillion at the end of 2024. An all-time high. Credit card balances rose by $45 billion from the prior quarter to reach $1.21 trillion at the end of December, which is also a record high. We have become accustomed to living in debt. We go into massive amounts of debt to get an education. We go into massive amounts of debt to buy a home. We go into massive amounts of debt to purchase our vehicles. And we even pile up debt to buy holiday gifts and to purchase groceries. The American people want to hear that better times are ahead. But under the current system, the only way to give the American people better times is to crank up the debt spiral and to an even higher level. That is the approach that our leaders have been taking for a long time, and it is madness. When you add up all forms of debt in our society, it comes to a grand total of more than $100 trillion. We're literally committing national suicide. I wish that I could get more people to understand this. 30 years ago, the total amount of debt in the system was less than $20 trillion. Now we have surpassed the $100 trillion mark. We're talking about a financial bubble that is unlike anything that the world has ever seen before. If we continue down this road, our children and our grandchildren would have no future. When people hear words like billion or trillion, they tend to tune out. But that is a mistake. There is an enormous difference between $1 billion and $1 trillion. Just how big is $1 trillion? To answer that question, I would like to use an illustration that I've used in my books. If right this moment you went out and started spending $1 every single second, you would take more than 31,000 years to spend $1 trillion. Yet somehow, we've piled up more than $100 trillion of debt, and our financial status just keeps getting worse month after month after month. If we want to get free from all this debt, we have to abandon the system that created all this debt in the first place. We need to abolish the Federal Reserve, the IRS, and the income tax. We've been living far, far beyond our means for decades, and it's been the greatest party in the history of the world. But it's time to turn out the lights because the party is over. The good news is that change is in the air. The answer to 1913 is 2025, and those that are attempting to dismantle the current system should be applauded. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder, and about the author. Michael Snyder's new book entitled Why is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books that are available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he's always freely and happily allowed others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.